Like many things in life, our human communication can be a double-edged sword. It can help us bridge divides and generate understandings, while in the next breath, it can create barriers and misunderstandings. And what better examples do we have than right here inside the Beltway, or from the town I was born and raised in, Los Angeles? You see, I come from this entertainment industry family, and it was their job to artfully use communication to manufacture realities for people, for better or for worse. So from a very early age, I was exposed to some fantastic spinning of tales. And as I got older, I began to realize that some of this spin was true, and some of this spin was a rather generous mixing of fact and fiction. But every time, every single time, people's attention was captured and held. And that's when I began to realize that successful communication occurs when we are able to push aside all the distractions of the world so that people actually pay attention to us. So let me ask you, how many of you in this room would say that you do a pretty good job of that you're pretty good communicators? Let's see. Everybody, you should have both hands up in the air, maybe a foot, because you wouldn't be where you are personally and professionally if that wasn't the case. But let me ask you this follow-up question. How many of you would say your communication has ample room for growth? Okay. Once again, thank you. Everybody should have all their hands and both feet up in the air. I could try, but I'd probably land on my behind. Look, I'm going to stand up here, and I'm going to say, look, I teach this stuff up at the University of Pennsylvania, right? Ivy League school. And I would be the first one to tell you that my communication has ample room for growth. And let me give you a perfect example of that. So earlier this month, 700,000 jubilant Philadelphians descended upon our neighborhood to celebrate the Super Bowl victory. We live right by the Museum of Art. And many of these folks aren't accustomed to being inebriated early on a Thursday morning. And being a city, there are not many public facilities around. So the easement next to our row house started to become a public facility. So I'm out there yelling at folks, "What are you doing? How can you do it?" And they're saying to me, "Hey, buddy, cool down, man." Now, would you ever imagine an inebriated Eagles fan telling somebody else to cool down? Right? So clearly it wasn't working. But my kids come up with this fantastic idea. They create this sign, and it says, "We like the Eagles, but we don't like pee on the side of our house." Right? And we tape it up outside. 30 minutes later, completely dry. All right? We all have room to grow. By the way, my 7-year-old insisted on me telling you that this is not the original sign, that the original sign wound up being washed away in the rain the following days, and thank God it rained. Look, it's really a miracle that we can successfully communicate at all, because the fact remains, nobody has really formally taught us how to do so. I mean, if we think about our formal education, we all have taken math classes, science classes, history classes, English classes. But how many of us have taken a class that was dedicated 100% to a core communication skill like, let's say, listening? Let's see, semester-long listening class, 100% dedicated. My goodness, we have one person in the room. Excellent. How about a 100% empathy class, a class entirely dedicated to empathy? Right? I mean, it's as if somebody has given us all the ingredients to cook a fantastic dinner. However, they forgot to give us the recipe or show us how to do it. And because we're smart, we'd figure it out. We wouldn't starve. But if we had a recipe for doing so, oh my goodness, our dinner could be that much more delicious. And that's what I want for all of you. I want all of you to have the most delicious communication possible. I would like all of you to become exceptionally human communicators. Exceptionally human communicators are strategic, They are nimble, and they connect with a variety of people in a variety of settings. And this is how I would like to do it. I would like to share with you this time-tested recipe for communication success. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. Well, the slide has already given it away. Right? It tells you exactly what this is and how you can apply it to your current communication practices so you can walk out of here today becoming that much more exceptionally human in your communication. So how does that sound? Does that sound good? All right. Excellent. Excellent. 2,300 years ago, ancient Greece, the philosopher Aristotle pinpoints exactly what a human being needs to provide to another human being so that they are paid attention to. Now, in academic speak, these are formally referred to as Aristotle's rhetorical proofs of ethos, pathos, and logos, but we're not going to go there. They are simply these three pillars of exceptional communication: trust, emotions, and reason. And because I want to make sure I have your full attention for this part, I'm going to dip into my performing arts background, and I am going to elaborate in song. In each and every interaction, these three pillars are at play. Whether we are conscious of it or unconsciously we sway, these three pillars can be the difference between being heard or being ignored. Wow, I hit it. So let's take a closer look at each one now and learn some more. Thank you. Right. I should just end there because it was good. No, all right, so let's dig into, well, first, what are these pillars? Pillar number one, trust. What is it about the way that we communicate with someone that allows that person to experience us as trustworthy or not? Pillar number two, emotions. What is it about our communication that allows someone to have either a positive emotional experience with us or a negative one? And third, reason. What is it about our communication that allows somebody to experience us as being reasonable and rational, or conversely, unreasonable and irrational? Trust, emotions, and reason in each and every interaction, whether we are consciously considering it or not. So let's dig in a little more to pillar number one right now, trust. And I'm going to do so by asking you this question. And I want you to give thought to your answer. What is it about the way somebody communicates with you that allows you to say to yourself, I think I trust this person, or I consider this person to be trustworthy? Right? So what is it about how they're communicating with you? The words, the tone of the voice, whatever it might be. So what I want you to do is make a new friend, turn to somebody next to you, and I want you to share with that person one example of how somebody communicates with you that allows you to say to yourself, I think I trust that person. You have 30 seconds for doing so, and go. Yeah. I'll be your friend. So what's one thing? All right, 10 more seconds. And I'm going to ask you to stop right here for the sake of time. I really hate to break up a good conversation, but I just want to get a couple examples. So you, ma'am, can you tell me one thing that you shared about? Oh. Okay, eye contact. How many of you had eye contact or discuss eye contact? Okay, a good number of you. And then how about you, sir? Body language. Okay, anybody talk about body language as well? Yeah, we discussed that. Perfect. Now, do either of these things mean that the person is actually trustworthy? Well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. But it's the perception that we have as a result of how they're communicating with us. And so if we had a bit more time, I would go deeper into trust with you, we would dig into emotions, and we would dig into reason. And what we would begin to discover is that these three do not operate independent of one another. They actually play off of one another. So, for example, Brian this morning, if he approached you outside Union Station with a board and said, hey, excuse me, would you break this board? All right, you probably don't trust strangers approaching you. You're going to feel a little awkward, and what a terribly unreasonable request. However, what does he do in this room? He builds the trust amongst us. He has us feeling positive about ourselves. Therefore, this totally unrealistic and unreasonable request of breaking a board suddenly appears reasonable. And the beauty of these three pillars is that they apply to any medium. Email, social media, face-to-face, telephone. They're 100% industry agnostic. They work for and on everyone. And one thing I really want you to keep in mind is as trustworthy as you believe you are, as emotionally positive as you feel you are, and as reasonable and rational as you consider yourselves to be, it has absolutely nothing to do with how you think about yourself and everything to do with how other people are perceiving you through these three pillars. So here's the recipe for communication success. Right, the three pillars of exceptional communication. So how do we make them work for you? Well, if we had more time, this is when I would help you discover where your current communication strengths are, where you have opportunities for communication growth, and how other people might be viewing you through these three pillars. And then we would help develop a strategy for you so you can immediately know what you need to do more or less of to increase that trust, generate desired emotions, and come across as reasonable as possible. But I don't want to leave you with nothing, so here's one thing we can all apply, starting today. So here's what I want you to do. All of us receive countless emails on a regular basis. And oftentimes, we'll quickly read an email and think to ourselves, I'll get back to it later. So here's what I want you to do, starting today, for the next week. Pick 2 emails that you normally might put aside and say, I'm going to get to later. And I want you to immediately reply with something to the effect of, thank you for your email. I'm extraordinarily busy right now. Give me a moment to look over this and I'll get back to you. And then hit send. But make sure you check unread on that email so it doesn't get lost. Right? Because what's the message the person's going to get when they get that email returned? They're going to get, wow, this person cares about me. They value me. I trust them more. I feel better. Then the next time you communicate with them, you're going to seem that much more reasonable than you might otherwise. So give it a try. And that's the beauty of what I'm talking about here. We're not talking about any radical transformation or Tony Robbins moment of who you are and what you do. No, we're talking about a modest and achievable, strategically thought about 5% difference in how you are currently communicating. That's it. Right? And if you think about how big can 5% be, what's a 5% difference in success look like for you, or a 5% difference in customer satisfaction scores, or a 5% difference in net promoter scores? My largest client is Philadelphia International Airport, $14.4 billion economic impact on the region. 5% of $14.4 billion is $720 million. 5% can be huge, and at the same time, it's as modest and achievable as my asking Patrick here to take 2 of the $40 he currently has in his pocket and giving it to charity. It's that doable. So, the recipe, how we apply it, realize our communication is going to continue to be a double-edged sword. And God only knows the world's going to become that much more of a distracted place. So let's not get lost in the crowd. Let's make sure we're seen. Better yet, let's make sure we are heard. The 3 pillars of exceptional communication: trust, emotions, and reason. This is the recipe to becoming an exceptionally delicious, exceptionally human communicator. I thank you all for your time. There are copies of the book. Yeah, I'll take it. I have copies of my book, Exceptionally Human, on the back table. Also, Exceptionally Human Communication Profile. You go online, 21 questions, takes you about 5 minutes, and you get feedback as to how other people might be viewing you through these pillars. There are cards for that on the table as well. Again, thank you, everybody. I look forward to working with you and your clients. Thank you.
And the crowd goes wild.